Hey everybody,
Hello,
this is Yvonne
Myra.
and we are LunaWorks Odds and Ends. And we're happy to be here for our, our third official video. And first of all, we'd like to do a couple of shout outs. Just wanted to shout out to the Introvert 83 who commented on our last video in reference to our coming out and how we met. And
Thank you.
thank you very much for that comment. And in reference to the first kiss, we will refer to that in a future video.
Yes, we'll definitely talk about that.
And we'll talk about...
There's a lot to talk about.
There's a lot to talk about as far as the
process.
coming out process. And so that is definitely a part of that. And also another shout out to two lovely ladies, Sharon and Rosa of Conversations with Sharon and Rosa. And just want to congratulate you guys on your 500 subscriptions. That is so awesome. Goals, ladies, goals. You
Very
guys
inspirational.
are very inspirational.
And we watch all the time.
Yes, we do. So thank you so much.
Very good.
So today's topic will be what I will call our second coming out, which is we're going to talk about the bars.
Yeah, our first bars, first clubs we went to in the 80s all the way up to
The 90s and going forward.
And from Hampton, Norfolk, Virginia, all the way up to D.C.
Yeah.
Not a lot. So we talked about the clubs and how they were meccas for people to meet and greet and learn, and coming from different areas of the country to a big city, even in the Tidewater area, into DC, and it's probably the first time going to a club or to meet someone who's like them.
Yeah.
And so we, again, were fortunate to have that experience together. But we know the importance of bars and the clubs during that time, because they were more than just places to dance and be.
They were community.
They were community, and we met our community through those clubs.
The first club we ever went to was called the Hershey Bar.
Hershey.
And Sports bar. And we were taken there by a mutual friend, and we caravan there, so to speak.
Right. And it was our first time, and they couldn't believe we had been together about 2 years at that time. And they could not believe that we had never been to a bar.
Oops.
Because, of course, that's how you meet people during that time. And
we met each other at work.
Yeah, somebody's work. And so the bar scene was not, we didn't meet there, which most people do meet in those situations often, or at work. So when we went there, it was kind of anew, because we have a completely different perspective of a club than someone who was going there for a different reason.
Right. So we followed our friend out there, and it's dark.
Very dark.
And it's like a entryway from the rear next to the, what'd you say?
Liquor store.
Next to a liquor store.
It's always, they always talk about how they're always in dives, but in like bad neighborhoods.
It was a dive.
Bad neighborhoods. It was just that it was industrial. It was like in the
warehouse district.
Kind of.
Yeah.
And it was just a weird corner of a street, and you had to park in the back where it was all gravel, and we went from the gravel, dark, to the back of this club. And I don't even know if it even had a sign.
Yeah, it did have a sign. It had a sign right across the top of the Hershey's. As a matter of fact, that sign, was still there up until like 2019 or something like that. We kind of equate this with the scene in The Wizard of Oz.
Yeah.
And it's very Julie Garland when you start to think about it, because you're out of the woods, you're out of the dark, you're out of the night. Step into the sun, step into the light, and march up to that door. There's lesbians.
Lesbians.
Lesbians. And that's exactly what it was.
We walked in.
And we opened that door.
And we both kind of looked at each other like, wow.
That was, yes. So that was our first experience.
Tell me that. So that club, the Hershey Bar, the clientele was mostly Navy,
Sportsy.
sports bar, mostly jocks, and enthusiasts, sports, and people who love military.
But they had a dance floor.
They had a dance floor, and it was for people who was a meet and greet for sure.
Yeah, they had video games. Well, jukeboxes. The what do you call those things? Video machines. See, now I'm dating myself.
Yeah,
okay,
you
but
are.
That's all right. They had video machines there, and it was nice. One of the things we kind of liked there is because it was a youngish crowd, but we were young also.
The issue with being young, they were within 5 years of us, let's say.
So they were
but
younger
we were
lesbians.
Older here.
Right. Yeah.
Because we were already been there where they're
right.
kind of thing.
Right.
So we had only just a little bit more maturity when it came to that relationship thing than a lot of people when they first walk into a club. And
we just weren't looking for anybody. We were
just having a good time.
Yeah.
So and kind of learning each other. Learning how she moves, how I move. How we move together?
Yeah.
It was one of those
Can
things
we dance?
of actually touching the arm or the hand of someone you love in a dance in an atmosphere that no one cared.
Yeah.
That you were doing that, and it was all about. I mean, we would literally go to the club and sit and have conversations with each other, and not paying attention to what was going on
because we were actually dating.
Yeah,
we were already there. We were already living together. We were already having a relationship. But the first time we were actually go out and actually date.
True. Yeah. So it was, and it was probably the first time someone.
The next club we went to was Shirleys. Shirleys was, how do you describe that place?
Shirleys, well, if you can imagine a brownstone, it was in the city, but they had like old houses that were connected together. It didn't look brick, it was just like old houses. And hers was like a duplex. It was two of them together, and one half was the bar, and the other half was the dance floor and the restaurant area. So, and it was the first time it was a very
tiny dance floor.
Yeah, it was. I don't know. It could have been 12 feet.
12 by 12.
By
12
8.
by 10.
By 8. It didn't matter.
But
it
the
filled
music
up.
was bumping.
The music was. It was. You got to remember, it was the 80s. It was disco, early disco.
It was. I wanna dance with somebody. It was Whitney Houston,
Donna Summer, Madonna.
There was this one song that, what was the name of that? Set It Off by this German group called Stripe. It was, that thing went on for 9 minutes?
Who was Lynn?
Stripe. It went on for 9 minutes. Who else? Ain't Nothing Going On About the Rent. And all that
all those good tunes were. And we also had TLC.
Yes.
I'm not sure if they were.
TLC was
later in the 90s. Or
that was
late 80s. I can't remember when they were, but we went into that transition of early hip. We kind of were very young. Early hip.
But they had good food. They had a bar, and it was also our first connection with the gay and lesbian community at that time. Now remember, this was during the time of AIDS. And also women's rights, and Shirley's had this really cool thing. Every event, every first Monday, they would do they didn't call it then, but it's basically an open mic, and people would do poetry,
Right.
sing, play the guitar,
Right,
you
and
know.
they would also have artists there, and they invited us to come and sell our wares.
Yeah.
And at the time, we were doing a lot of gay and lesbian imagery and postcards and
Greeting cards,
doing all of that,
posters,
and stained glass. I think
stained glass. We did, yes,
Yeah.
we did, of course. Back then, you know, it was like traditional imagery. You know, the lambda, the pink triangle. Rainbows weren't in yet.
Had a little bit of rainbow.
That,
not a whole
yeah,
lot.
that happened closer to the 90s.
Right.
So
and
we were
community.
able to sell our wares through them. I mean, you know, with them. And that put us in contact with ODU and doing a women's program with, you know, bringing our artwork there along with other artists and craftsmen. And then that
And
led,
women. It was
and
a
other
women's festival.
Yeah, it was a women's festival, and that was
Um,
kind of big during the 80s,
Yeah,
you know.
and it was through the Shirleys, through the club, that we met
Mary Farmer.
the entrepreneur who actually owned and ran the Llama's bookstore, and she would hump her wares from I think the ends of the earth, but she would, you know, women. There was not iTunes. There was nothing that you can connect your music to, so it was people just had to hustle it, and she would bring books and music and spread them out on the table, and the women would go crazy because, you know, you're talking small towns and, you know, and places in between that don't get this, don't even know they exist. So, you know, it was really one of the reasons why we came, you know, selected DC to come to, was because of someone like people like Mary Farmer, because we felt that DC would have a community, also a good community for
And
us.
they did have a community.
But we
very
were
good
trying
community.
to move ourselves as artists up out of that area. We were kind of growing ourselves out, and so it was Llama's bookstore that we connected to, and Yvonne actually worked there for
It was
a while.
a great place to work for. One of the things I remember is meeting all these different women that came there because that was a central location to find out information. And I also worked for Lambda Rising, which was the larger gay and lesbian bookstore in Washington, D.C. And I worked there every other Saturday or something like that. So being at Shirley's got us involved in the community, which led us to come to
DC's community.
Right. The next club that we visited was the Q, or also known as the College Q,
which was right outside of Old Dominion University.
This was a primarily gay bar, male gay bar, but they were friendly to everyone.
Right.
And what we loved about the College Q was Sunday.
We were introduced. Someone else took us there.
That's right, and they told us this is the best deal in town.
Best deal in town for brunch or dinner.
Dinner, yeah. So for $6. $6. Okay. $6. You could have a buffet, full buffet, from at 6 o'clock.
Cooked by military cooks.
They had to be, because
and, I mean, these guys cooked like mama cooked.
Yes,
they were great cooks.
They were great cooks.
And
wait a minute,
and the food was unbelievable. I mean, huge ribs. I mean,
yeah,
when we were
it was good.
Ribs,
but wait a minute, not just a
food.
Brunch. I mean, a buffet for $6. You got also entertainment, where they would play a movie or something prior while you're sitting there eating. And then
it was a dance.
9 o'clock, the dance floor opened up.
Yep.
11 o'clock, a full drag show.
I mean, for $6.
For $6.
So we were regulars.
Yeah.
To say the least. because that was our entertainment. That was our healthy, felt good entertainment.
And you met all kinds of really cool people.
It was really,
and the music was bumping.
It was always good music, and you end up having your favorite, drag performers or favorite DJs. It was really, another community of that we loved to be involved in all the time.
And the Q actually did one of the first gay pride
in Norfolk
and festivals in Norfolk.
Yeah.
So that was pretty
that's the
wild back then.
So the bars weren't always just the bars.
Just for clubs. They were
really
community centers.
Centers, yes. Absolutely.
They were definitely community centers.
Yeah.
So we're going to move on to another place, which was called Stella Street.
Stella Street.
Now, Stella Street was Stella was owned by Shirleys, which also was the sister of the guy who owned the Q.
Right.
It was definitely a community there. So, but Stella Street was they were trying to do an upscale version of Shirley's, it was nice. They had a really nice bar, long, very
it's very modern,
very modern for that time.
Yeah.
And of course, I think we actually did maybe a couple of shows there. I do remember bringing work there at one point for some reason. I couldn't be surprised. And the same people who were at Shirley's also hung out at Stella Street.
It was more of a little bit more middle class.
Middle class.
I wouldn't say upper middle. It was a little more
middle class.
Women.
Still military.
Working women.
Yeah. A lot more couples.
Yes.
And you did have regulars that were there. So when you have a limited amount of clubs in a town, you're bound to have regulars. Bound to have regulars, and they know your name. When we moved to Washington, D.C., and learning about the community, because we have been coming up and back and forward to D.C. to visit Myra's sister, and so we got an eyeball of what was happening in Washington, D.C.
A little bit.
Yeah. Well, we went to Lambda Rising and Llamas, because those were the two places where we actually bought our books and things,
right,
and magazines and newspapers and things.
Right.
So when we nerded out like a mug, for real. So when we moved to Washington, D.C., one of the places that we were told about was Hillhaven. Hillhaven was in southeast D.C. You had to go upstairs, Capitol Hill. And I'm not sure who the first owners were when we went, but later on it was
when we were going
there.
An African American woman owned it.
The place,
I wish I could remember her name, but I know she passed away.
Passed away a few years ago. Hillhaven had, of course, dancing every Saturday night, and a few other events that were going on. They had a little restaurant. They had food.
They had a pretty good restaurant.
Yeah, they did. And they had a great DJ. I mean, they had you moving all the time. And another thing they did was exotic dancers. And these
First
women,
time we saw that.
Yeah, and these women were talented, and they were strong. Because there were some of them that had these tricks where they would flip you. Not me, mind you. But they would flip you up strong. They were strong, and they were very flexible. It was just one thing. And, of course, you got everybody, trying to, do the money and everything. But I thought that was something totally new for me.
For a club,
for real. And we enjoyed ourselves. The dancing was good. Music was fabulous. Everything was just one of those. You felt comfortable, and you really did. And you dressed up.
Yes. You would dress up to go to the club.
Yeah.
Like, dress up. Everybody dressed up. Not just one of you, both of you.
It kind of reminded me when my mom and dad would go out, you know, they going out to the NCO club or something like that, and they would dress up. And it's like, you know, why can't I dress up like that? And this was the time that, you know, we could dress up and hang out at the club. And Hillhaven was one of those places.
Right.
It was nice.
Speaking of
Pop-ups.
the pop-ups, a restaurant, Jenny's restaurant. Jenny's was over in the Safeway. She was on the Southwest. And she was a Asian fusion restaurant.
Delicious food.
Great food. And she would, of course, have on Saturday nights at least
Women's club.
Women's club, and all the time it was always exotic dancers or dancers that ended the evening or was a break in there. Or more than, and then sometimes it was just that, you know, you just came for that. And
drinks were great, food was great,
and the owners were wonderful. We got out of that building and moved literally on the waterfront.
On the waterfront.
And she no longer did the
women's nights,
but we continued to go there to a restaurant because it was very good.
Their happy hour was fabulous.
Yes. And so we talk about her a lot because when we got married, we had our reception there, and she really treated us like queens. When she did that, she could not wait. She was so excited.
She was really excited about that
to be able to do our reception at her restaurant. So, and you know, kind of a history. I would love to hear what's going on in everyone's community about the club scene, and does it exist still? Is that kind of what we're
we want to know if social media has put a
it's been great because we're better accepted, not necessarily everywhere, but it's still a good tool to have. Does it still exist? Or there's people using it?
Okay. So
well, that's it for us.
Yep. And
please remember to subscribe. We'd love to hear from you, and we would love to know things that you would like for us to talk about. Please write a comment and please hit the bell to get notifications. We try to do them every Thursday or Friday. So depending on how much work we have to do with it. So that's pretty much it.
So, we'll talk at you later. This is Luna Works, Odds and Ends, and we'll see you next week.